because Galway will rejoice like never before. Galway are the All-Ireland champions. They have now in Galway got new heroes.
Christy O'Connor, a dramatic afternoon on Sunday at Pearse Stadium. Galway eventually beat Kilkenny, who staged a typical comeback to draw level late on, but Cooney stayed ice cool late on to convert a controversial free.
Yeah, like look at Cian, massive win for Galway in the circumstances. And, particularly in the context of how they, the Wexford game finished, right? If they draw on that game again after, being in such a commanding position like they were against Wexford, there would be doubts coming in and maybe questions asked. But, okay, maybe did get a bit of a break, with the last free. But in fairness to Conor Cooney, stood up, iced it. Not an easy free to take. So look at brilliant win. A lot of positives. I think they'd only 56% conversion rate. Still had they 14 more shots at the target than Kilkenny. Coughed up maybe 2-9 off turnovers, which would be a little bit of a concern. But look at very positive and a lot of good moves made. In the game. Like Cody was doing a lot of damage. Switch Pádraig Mannion back on him. So yeah, look at and like huge crowd as well. I suppose a lot of were obviously there to the whole Cody Shefflin dynamic was a big draw and a big attraction. But look at Galway. They're like once they get the crowd behind them, once they get that feel good factor going, which they have now. Like they're in a great position now to at least get to obviously get in the top three. Get to Leinster final. And look at building, let's be honest, Limerick are the team to beat, okay? But Galway are probably the one team that, are maybe set up better than other teams. We mentioned here before, but there is a lack of pace in the Galway team, but that's not as much of an issue against a team like Limerick, who you have to go to war with. And Galway are well set up to do that, right? I suppose the one biggest, worry you have, right, is if you look at their 3 games now, right? They've scored 3 points off the bench, right? Nothing on Sunday again. I know they're bringing on young players, but even if you look at what Kilkenny got off the bench Sunday, 1-5, 1-4 from play. You look at what Limerick have got. They've got 9 points off the bench in their 2 games, right? So that is a concern, Cian. You need now. It's not a 15-man game, and you need guys coming in that are going to make a difference on the scoreboard. Now you can't add that. Okay, Conor Whelan came in, could have had a couple of scores, still not fully match fit, but that would be a little bit of a concern now.
The fact, Christy, that Galway hurled so well in the first half, scoring 117, of course, had to absorb the 2 goals that Kilkenny got, and Owen Cody, as you mentioned, certainly was causing Galway plenty of bother. After half-time, though, it was a different match, and Galway were finding scores harder to come by, but nonetheless, to still win is key for the development of the team, Christy.
Absolutely, Cian. Even if I was watching the Liverpool Villarreal game last night, right? And you look at obviously Villarreal got an early goal. They were looked right in it, but you could just see that Liverpool just trusted themselves. Obviously changed around at half time. Klopp said they weren't playing football in the first half. And you could clearly see obviously the age profile and the the physical conditioning, right? I saw Richard Dunn say there recently that that on average I think teams are running maybe 50k a week in pre-season to get ready for the season. Liverpool are running 90, right? Because that's the level they're operating at. 90 kilometers a week to get ready for the game that they want to play. And you look at the season they're having and the amount of games they're playing. So Liverpool just trusted themselves, right? And that's what Klopp said after, is that you start playing football, you start doing what you're good at, and you could see even before they got the first goal that the tide was turning. I think that's the point he made after, is that you kind of trust what you've done, and that often to be able to win the game, and that's in those circumstances is nearly more pleasing than maybe going out and blowing them away. So I'd say you can't compare Liverpool with Galway, but a lot of similarities there, Cian, in that you grind it out, right? You win through adversity. Like that dressing room was probably as sweet as whipping a team by 10 points. Okay, you beat a team by 10 points. There's a massive amount of, satisfaction with that. But sometimes it's easy to win those games, or you're 4 or 5 points up, you get a goal, they maybe, a few things go against them, like to concede a goal to Kilkenny in that manner, you're saying again, here we go, typical Kilkenny. They got a break, but they still won the game. So I'm sure that was a really, really, happy Galway dressing room afterwards. And, you can kick on, you could even see it on the pitch afterwards, how much it meant to those players. And I think as well for Henry, the players maybe felt that they owed him something like that. When you consider, what he's put into it, right? And, even from talking to people around the squad, that there was a fear after, his brother passed away that he wouldn't come back. That they went down to the funeral, they couldn't get over the journey, Cian. They realised how much the guy was putting into the whole thing, how much of a commitment is involved. And, the signs where you just say, you know what, we've got to, there has to be payback here. Like, he's given his everything to us. We've got to give him something back. And I think in the circumstances, that's probably what added to the satisfaction of the win, especially the manner of it.
That was a brilliant piece you had in the Examiner on Saturday ahead of the match, Christy, where you referenced some of those stories. But looking at it, Christy, and you've been involved at inter-county level on the coaching side of it. But at the moment, we're in a strange, I suppose, scenario. It's early May. Most counties have played 2 championship matches already. So, like you were saying about the Liverpool aspect, where they're preparing for a kind of a high volume of matches, but which they're currently playing, albeit a different sport, etc. But right now, the fact that, let's say, Galway and other teams have a week off this weekend, it's hard, Christy, in the sense that a lot of these guys have played Fitzgibbon, they've played in the Allianz Hurling League, they've played a lot of matches, considering it's only the first week in May.
Yeah, absolutely, Cian. And I think, that there's a lot of dynamics within that as well, where, like, let's say, you look at the Tip Waterford game, right, where, like, you could say that Tip, I'm sure they did, right? I'm sure Tip really targeted that Waterford game because they had a 4-week lead in, right? Waterford were coming in on the back of a league final win 2 weeks earlier, right? So, okay, they're coming in on the high of winning a league final. But, there's a lot of this stuff where they've 2 weeks to prepare for Tip now. They have to come down for a few days after the league final. Tip have 4 weeks to prepare, really, like, could have won that game, right? And then, Tip come along, then they play a week later, obviously not at the same pitch. There's a bit more pressure on again, completely off the pace against Clare. Like, that's why I suppose from a Cork perspective, it was so disappointing last week where, they lost to Limerick. They've 2 weeks off. They've 2 weeks to zone in on Clare. They can watch Clare closely, against Tip, and then just, completely underperform. Clare 2 games in a row, right at the pitch of it. So yeah, like, look, we spoke about this before, Cian, that they're not professional players. There's an awful lot else going on in their lives, but like you said, there's a lot of hurling already played, and these guys know as well that if you look at, let's say, the Waterford Cork game on Sunday week, like, the Munster Championship could effectively collapse for the last round because Waterford win, okay, it's down into it's top 3 are already there. Like, the Tip Cork game in the last game will be a dead rubber. Even the other side of that is, if Cork win, right, well, then everybody's involved. Okay, let's say Limerick might be qualified, might not, but like, you could have a situation then whereby if Cork beat Waterford, there's no guarantees Waterford will get anything out of Ennis in their last match. Tip beat Cork, then you have Cork, Tip, Waterford on 2 points. Clare obviously be qualified because I've already got 4. Limerick will be qualified. So then it comes down to scoring difference. So even though you have this dynamic now where Cork are really on the floor, they're going into the Waterford game with a lot of pressure on them. Like, Waterford are going in with a lot of pressure as well, Cian. And maybe that we've mentioned this before, that are they as good maybe as we made them out to be? Like, the way Clare are playing, like, you could say Waterford are going to struggle to come to Ennis and get the 2 points. So their season is effectively on the line as well against in Walsh Park on Sunday week. Like, so to answer your question, right, there's just so much to take in. You know, in the past where you had this championship where you'd play a game, you'd have maybe 4 or 5 weeks to get ready for the qualifiers. You know, with all due respect to some of the teams in the qualifiers, you could probably target whether you're going to win that game. You know, then it's to look at the draw. It was kind of easier to get your head around it. Whereas now everything is just coming at you. It's like, you know, there's so much to take in. There's so much, you know, you've like for some teams now, for Clare, for example, you know, you have some, like, you know, Clare have struggled with injuries. You know, David Reedy, Shane Meehan, Ed McCarthy, Patrick O'Connor, Ed, you know, like I'm missing somebody else. Like, you know, like they get some of these guys back, right? Then you have a series 20. But, you know, I suppose that's been the most pleasing part for Clare up to now, Cian, was that, like, could they, you know, survive that, you know, those losses and just get the points on the board, maybe get them back. Whereas, like, Clare are in an incredible position now, whereby they're still not qualified, but they've very healthy scoring difference. You know, 2 huge wins away from home, 2, you know, 2 home games to come, guys coming back, and, you know, the Clare public absolutely behind the squad. So, you know, it just goes to show you how the Clare mentality is at the moment compared to the Cork, you know, the Cork, I suppose, collective mentality, the Tip collective mentality. And all of this turns, Cian, on maybe one game, you know. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it's just, it's everything is just, it's so condensed. And you have to get so much right in such a short time span for your season to kind of flower. And that's what teams are looking for now. With the teams that are qualified, not qualified, but the teams that are in a good position to qualify, they're already kind of half in the back of their heads starting to plan for what they need to do to take it on to the next level. Because, you know, I even saw Tony Kelly on after the game on Sunday. He said Clare's only, you know, priorities get into that top 3 like every other team. And then you can maybe start to think differently after that.
And Christy, I suppose if we look at the Leinster Championship there the weekend, apart from the Galway Kilkenny game, like there was a couple of hidings handed out there from teams, like, you know, like it is like it's so it's like, you know, how do we succeed in building like the likes of the Leashes and teams up for the future, like?
Yeah, look, we mentioned this before, Colm, about, you know, the I suppose this is a natural byproduct of what happened in 2019, where Galway went out on scoring difference. And, you know, that there's no team is taking any risk now. And I suppose, look at it, it's the great conundrum for, you know, the hurling community is to try and, I suppose we are lucky that there are so many competitive teams. You go back 10 years ago where effectively had Kilkenny and Tip, you know, especially around the end of the last decade, you know, 09, 10, 11, you know, you could nearly say at the start of the year, you know, 10, 11, you're saying, well, it's going to be probably a Tip Kilkenny final, which it was. You know, and then you look at, you know, how the underage, you know, I suppose scenes started to roll after that. Clare started to do well at minor, Waterford started to do well at minor, you know, Dublin were doing well at underage. So, you know, those trends are starting to, you know, visible again. So you look at the Leinster Championship, just to digress for a second, like the last 10 All-Ireland under 20, under 21 titles have been won by Munster teams. You know, you look at Galway again the other night, Colm, you know, another under 20 defeat. Now, you know, very, very tight game. Could have gone either way, like, but it's another year Galway have failed to progress on from, you know, winning a minor, you know, that same age group that have, you know, again, it hasn't happened under 20, and we've spoken about those reasons. So I suppose for you know, to answer your question about the underage, like Offaly actually have a really, really good minor team this year, right? Couple of exceptional players, but, you know, I suppose with Offaly's numbers, they're going to need, they're not going to hang their future on one minor team. But so that's the problem, I suppose, with, you know, Laois had a good win last week in the minor. You know, Westmeath have had some incredible results in under, you know, they beat Kilkenny under 21 in 6 years ago. But it's just trying to, I suppose, sustain that. And, like, you know, the reality of this, Colm, it's down to money, right? Where, you know, you're if you say money, it's not about throwing money. Like Limerick are the prime example where, you know, it's not about money. It's about proper organisation, proper structures in place, the right people you know, the right people who are heading up this, who are in control, who are controlling the development squads. That's what is money will only get you so far. But for the counties like, you know, that are struggling to get up to that level, it's serious investment where you put in the people. You know, the money is targeted. Like there was a couple of years ago there, or back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where the GAA that they had, it was an $1 million investment to Laois, Antrim, Westmeath, Harlow. Like, you know, you break up that money over 5 years. Like, it's like, what's it really going to do? You know, and there's other questions then where, you know, you've had great people involved as directors of hurling, right? But like, what is their job? You know, like it's kind of very much, they go on, they do a ball session, they go to a club, like, you know, there needs to be like a blueprint there and a plan there. But look at, you know, we've all seen a column in counties where football, you know, dominates. The hurling is not given the same respect it deserves. Well, you can't say that in Laois or Westmeath, you know, a lot of other counties, but like, you know, those counties still need so much support and backup. And you know, reality of it is you're going up against counties that have
100 years of it behind them.
Yeah, they're just in a better place, and that, you know yourself, in the round robin, you get up, like, you know, we talked about the momentum from winning, but you know, you're taking the hidings. It's a completely different mentality then. You know, it's just survival mode then, and you know, it's a totally different mindset.
And I suppose we look just kind of to say, like, the McDonagh Cup this year, you have Antrim, Kerry, and Offaly battling out to try and get out of there. Like, do you really see them as being able to compete if they do get out up next year into either Leinster or Munster and Kerry's way? If they come through a playoff, they have to come through a circuitous route to get into it.
Yeah, well, I think, look, at the biggest issue with the Joe McDonagh in the past, for example, right, was like, it was the yo-yo effect, right, whereby you win the Joe McDonagh, you come up, you know, you're playing Kilkenny, Galway, you know, the top teams, you know, you can't make that jump, right? Now, I suppose what happened was, you know, there was talks about even before the 6 teams came into Leinster, that just happened because of 2020, and there was no relegation, and there was a team promoted from Joe McDonagh. So, you know, that, but like there was talk before that, Colm, whereby you would have a kind of a year where you have a grace year where you come up from the Joe McDonagh, and you know, you don't get relegated. You know, you give the teams a chance to kind of to build and to try and adjust to that level. You know, Carlow in particular has seen that, like, that, you know, come up, you know, that their players have spoken about that, where they just felt, you know, they're trying to bridge the gap. How can you bridge the gap? You know, you go straight back down again, then you're coming up again. You're trying, you know, so but this is the ruthless manner of the round robin. It's, you know, teams are going to be, this could come down to scoring difference. Yeah. So it's merciless. You know, you just have to, and you know, I think that the real picture is probably, it's not as skewed as it looks, but you know, teams that are down on confidence, that are, you know, down on bodies, they're down on their luck, things are going against them. It can be very, very hard to lift that kind of, or remove that malaise when it sets in, Colm.
Yeah.
Finally, Christy, Tip and Limerick this weekend at the Gaelic grounds is the main hurling match on the agenda. How do you see that one unfolding?
Yeah, sure. Look at Cian, it's very hard to see anything other than a, you know, big Tip win, or sorry, a big Limerick win. Like, you know, I think, you know, things are going well in Tip from what I can gather. You know, they're happy with a lot of stuff, but you know, look at, you can't lose, like, you know, we've seen this with the Dublin footballers, but like, you know, you can't lose, you know, so many generational players, you know, in one kind of fell swoop, like Pádraig Maher, Brendan Maher, Seamus Callan, who's out injured, you know, and then there's a lot of other players below that. Bubbles isn't back, Niall O'Mara, like, you know, really Willie Connors, good players, you know, that any county would struggle to lose that volume of players in so quickly. But you know, you're talking then about, you know, some of the greatest players Tip have ever produced, Brendan Maher, Pádraig Maher, even their presence alone in the dressing room, you know, is a hole that you're not gonna fill easily. From a Limerick perspective, you know, I'd say Limerick now would, if you go back to the 2018 championship, right, where Limerick, you know, the Clare played Tip in their last game, and Tip were ahead by 5 points, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes to go. Clare came back, won the game, right? Limerick beat Waterford the same day. And I know that Limerick were they had expected Tip to win. Word had come through in the last game, or the last few minutes, that Tip were ahead. So I think Limerick were their mindset was, we're looking, okay, we're going to be qualified now. We're going to be in a Munster final. We go to Ennis in our last game. We'll be able to rest players. You know, because Limerick were playing 3 weeks in a row. So that's what Limerick will want on Sunday, Colm, or Cian. They'll want to get the job done. So, you know, obviously they'll want to come to Ennis and win the game, right? But they'll be qualified. They have the luxury then of being able to rest players, be able to try a few different things, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, right, like this round robin, whether you like it or not, it is very, you know, intensive. There's a lot of attrition there with bodies. Limerick have had their issues with injuries. You know, if you can qualify, you know, you have a game where, you know, you're not under pressure to win it. You know, it takes the psychological pressure off as well. It gives you an extra maybe mental kind of lead into a Munster final, which Limerick will look to have. So Limerick will be going out here to get business done. And the other side of it as well is there was a lot of years where, you know, Limerick knew nothing else, only hiding from Tip. So they're the top dogs now. Tip are struggling a bit. You know, you saw it with Kilkenny when they're in their pomp. No mercy. You get a chance to, you know, drill the team into the ground. That's what Limerick will be looking to do. So yeah, you expect nothing other than a big Limerick win.
And we'll see a handshake after.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and look at I suppose there's been so much made about it, Colm, right? And I thought Shane Downey made a good point on the Sunday game, like that Henry has been through an awful lot. You know, incredible grief, like losing his brother so young. You know, I thought it was bad taste, but look, that's just the other side of Cody. That, you know, he's just, and look at maybe he I know that Brian Cody has asked Henry to get involved in the past, and there's been word that, you know, Shefflin was told that by Cody that, look, you'll take over. But if you look at the succession plan of Kilkenny over the last 10 years, like, you know, there's been good guys brought in. You know, Henry's kind of made me saying to himself, well, there's no guarantees that's going to happen. Brian might stay on for another 2 or 3 years. You know, I've got a chance now to go to Galway to put my stamp on things. And, you know, we spoke about it here last week as well, Colm, where Henry's just a different mentality. You know, you've seen that, the way he's been able to respond to the grief and to be able to, you know, the mental strength to go to Galway, to still do the job, you know, to the same level, you know, that he did before, you know, from when he first started in the job, that, you know, he's a complete winner. He does it his way. Like, Henry was never going to look at it like that. You know, people think that you need to go in as a selector with Cody before you can become manager. Henry would never have looked at it that way. That's not the way a guy like him would think.
Thanks a million, Christy, for joining us. Insightful as ever.
Because Galway will rejoice like never before. Galway are the All-Ireland champions. They have now in Galway got new heroes.